Reentry of Former Prison Inmates by Gabrielle Pruitt. A definition of the population. There are 1 in 100 of every adults behind bars in the United States. There are 1 in 106 of white men incarcerated, while there are 1 in 15 black men incarcerated. There are 1 in 355 white women, while there are 1 in 265 black women. These statistics show the racial and gender disparities among prison inmates. A definition of the problem. 86.5% of those released from prison with 10 or more prior arrests were back in prison within 5 years of being released, while 43.4% were arrested within 1 year. 76.9% of drug offenders were rearrested, while 71.3% of violent offenders were rearrested. There are 2.4 million inmates in prisons and jails, which shows just how large of a population is affected. Housing discrimination. The Fair Housing Act helps protect people from housing discrimination, but those with criminal records are not included within this population served. The principle of least eligibility applies to this population and means that people believe that those formerly incarcerated should receive no goods or services at the same rate as those who have lived without breaking the law. Employment discrimination. If someone has a criminal history record, it decreases the number of jobs available to them. Some prisons and jails have job training programs, but not all of them provide this service. Many of those incarcerated lack an education, making it even harder to obtain employment. How reentry affects the individual. The rate of death was 12.7 times higher than the general population among being released from prison. The main cause of death was drug overdose, with other causes being cardiovascular disease, homicide, and suicide. Females released from prison are more likely to die of a drug overdose than men. The lack of pre-release programs in prisons make it harder for individuals to successfully re-enter society. The colonial period. People weren't locked up long-term unless they had debt during this time. Other forms of punishment included fines for misdemeanors with public shame, physical chastisement, and death being used for more serious crimes. The amount of capital crimes increased from about 50 to more than 200 as the standards for receiving the death penalty were lowered during this time period. The 21st century. Many things have changed since the colonial period, as many of their punishments were deemed cruel and unusual under the 8th Amendment of the Constitution. A jury decides if a defendant is guilty, and then a judge sentences them at a later date. Congress has set maximum and minimum punishments for various crimes to help guide judges in their decision. The death penalty is still used from the colonial period, but in a different and less frequent pattern. The First Step Act. The First Step Act was signed into law on December 21, 2018 by President Donald Trump. The goal was to improve criminal justice outcomes along with reducing the amount of people in the federal prison population. It requires the BOP to provide recidivism reducing partnerships to help inmates while in prison. It puts into place incentives for success by giving them good time credit. It puts various provisions into place to improve the quality of life for inmates, such as providing tampons and sanitary napkins for free and in an amount that meets the needs of each prisoner. There are my references. Thank you.